think it's kind of exciting that you have a brand new asset class. Hey, it's Digital Asset Guy. We've got a beautiful day for me to tell you all the story of how I was forced to choose crypto over my most serious girlfriend. So here goes. We met online. It was probably it was 2018, I think, in the winter, in December of 2018. I wasn't big on the dating apps because I was burnt out on them like we all were. This was before the pandemic. But anyway, I was on there. I see this cute little blonde girl pops up, says she's less than a mile away in my town. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of unusual. I've dated everyone around here, so she must be new in town. So I set up a date and we meet for coffee, which is, the dreaded half-hour interview to nowhere, I call it. But it didn't really go like that because she was so nice and she was not acclimated to online dating culture, because I learned this was her very first date ever, and her first date from online dating, from Hinge. So anyway, we meet up, and immediately I could tell she didn't have a lot of experience with online dating, which was great. It was a breath of fresh air. I go into the coffee shop and she immediately stands up and says, "Are you so-and-so?" "I'm so-and-so." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I am." And everyone in the coffee shop's kind of looking, like, well, we know they're on a first date. And so it goes completely different than any other online date. But it was actually kind of okay. And leaving that first date, I kind of had the feeling, I don't know if I'm too head over heels, just kind of, she's very, very nice, almost overly friendly, which is kind of unusual these days. But at the end of the date, she said, she said something like, "Should we go on an actual date," or something like that. And I said, "Yeah, why don't we?" Because she was so nice. So we kind of set that up at the end of the first date. But again, I was kind of I wasn't too into it. But I think today one of the problems with online dating is that we don't give people a chance to really show us who they are, and I don't think anyone's really themselves on a first date. So anyway, we go on the second date. It's a little better. I can tell that this is a girl from an even smaller town than we were in, who was just kind of dipping a toe into dating in general. And she told me I was the first person she ever swiped on online dating. Not the first person she went out with ever swiped on. I said, "Well, did you go out with anyone else?" "No, I downloaded the app and I put in, all the information, and then your face popped up." That's what she told me. This girl, she was she's one of those people who's like the nicest person in the world, even if she's having a bad day. And that's what I really liked about her. But she knew nothing about crypto, nothing whatsoever, but it was fine at the beginning. And so I think maybe on that first and second date, I sort of mentioned it when we did the, "What do you do?" I told her about my day job. She told me about hers. And then I said, "I'm really a cryptocurrency investor and aspiring influencer." Even back then, I got started posting things on Facebook, but it wasn't a huge deal to her. I could tell. She said, "Oh, that's interesting. I don't know anything about that," the usual. So anyway, the third date she actually asked me on, and it was around Christmas time. she said, would you like to go see the lights at the zoo, where they put up Christmas lights at the zoo? And this girl loves animals. She has a cat. I think she still does. I don't know. I haven't talked to her in a while, but she had this cat that she just loved this cat. And this cat hated me to the point it was hilarious. Anytime I'd come in, it would run and hide under the bed, and then it would come out of the bed and look at me with the eyes and then go back in like, why is he here? And oh, but she loved this cat. She loved animals. So anyway, we go to the zoo, and I couldn't say no, because she's just so nice, and she's putting in a lot of effort to get this going, which was refreshing, even though I wasn't too head over heels. And so I go to the zoo, and I can tell she's like a little bit nervous about something when we get there. Gives me this big hug. She's dressed like somebody's grandma with like this Christmas sweater with a polar bear on it or something like that. Very cute. That's just how she is. So she's like looking down at my hand, and then all of a sudden she just grabs my hand, like nervously, just like, I'm just gonna do it. So she grabs my hand, and it was definitely kind of awkward and out of nowhere, but it was so cute. You know, most girls would never ever do that. And so I appreciated it, and I thought it was so darn cute. So then she leads me around the zoo, and she's showing me all her favorite animals, and let's go see Mr. Polar Bear. And then she says, oh, let's see the penguins. Did you know that penguins are the only animal that mate for life? And she's telling me all these facts. Oh, somebody's mowing grass. We'll wait for him to go by. It's a pretty nice day out here. So anyway, she leads me around the zoo, and it's just so darn cute and refreshing, because, you know, a lot of girls, they would never put in this effort. But she was from a small town, and she didn't have, to this day, she's probably still like this, but she just didn't have that, she didn't have any experience in online dating culture. And she doesn't have a lot of girlfriends at all, really. She's just a very unique person, so she had nothing influencing her on this, and I kind of liked that. So then on the fourth date, I think she planned that one too. I think we were going to go out to dinner and see a movie or something out, but this was later that winter, like in January or February, and we got totally snowed out, like where we couldn't drive. So we lived super close, so we ended up staying in that night and just watching a movie, doing something totally normal. And that's when things changed, you know. Since we were in, we got a chance to really talk, and I started to actually like her, because I don't know, I had enough time to get to know her, and she started acting maybe a little bit more normal, where it wasn't like she was putting in all this effort and everything. So I actually kind of started to like her, because it was such a nice change from all these girls that are on online dating that just play all these games, and they make it miserable, and they just, you know, they're like a 6 and they're acting like they're an 11, all that, and all this not texting back for 3 days, all that BS, you know. But there was none of that with this girl. And so it allowed me to get to know her, and then eventually become attracted to her, you know. And so I did. I realized that I actually did like her, but it took a little time. So usually most online dating today, if they even show up, you know, these girls, they can get as many matches as they want, and then they just go through and wait at the finish line and pick 10 guys, and then they're only going to go out with one, but they'll set up dates and everything with tons of guys and then just ghost them. You know, the worst is when they set up a date and they even confirm and then they just don't show up at the time of the date. You look at your phone, you text them, it turns green because they blocked you. They blocked you on the dating app, they blocked you on social media, and that's the worst because they develop trust and then they ghost you. But there's a ton of that going on today, which is I'm just done with. But anyway, this particular girl, it went differently. So after that, we just started actually hanging out a lot, and she just became like family, and we didn't have all these societal behaviors and things going on, so things moved pretty quick. And I eventually, even though we already lived close to each other, like less than 10 minutes, I actually moved to her apartment complex. I didn't move in with her, and she did not move in with me, because I don't do that, and it's not even some big religious thing. It's just a lifestyle preference. Oh, there's a duck. Hey, ducky. It's a lifestyle thing for me. I love living alone. That's the best way to do things for me. I'm very extroverted, but I also like to be alone. But I moved closer to her. I moved to her apartment complex, and we lived about 100 yards away in our own apartments. I think that was the best setup for a relationship I've ever had. Actually, I know it was. It was great. You know, we'd do our own thing, but every night we would eat dinner together almost. She'd come to mine, I'd go to hers, and it was just great. So things went on like that for about a year. Maybe a year and a half. And she never showed a lot of interest in crypto. She would ask me about it from time to time. Never really put any real effort in to understand, She didn't dislike it, but just, it was kind of okay. I tried to teach her about it a time or two. Just not a whole lot of effort, but it wasn't a problem, So then where the problems came in, I started learning a little bit more about her financial situation, which was okay. She worked in insurance downtown, had an okay job. I never heard much about work from her. And then one day there was a merger that her company got bought or something. So she mentioned it to me, and she said, somebody bought our company, so everything's changing. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, and it seemed all right. Month goes by. Babe, I don't really like my job as much. I don't really know exactly what to do. Everything's changed. Everybody's frustrated, and I like the old way. I said, well, I never heard you complain before. Maybe you need to get a new job or make a change or something. Didn't really want to do that. Then another month goes by. Babe, they put me on an improvement plan. I'm like, I don't like the sound of that. And she was not happy, and I just knew something wasn't right. A lot of complaining every day. And so I start telling her, I think you need to find a new job. Doesn't want to do that. And then the pandemic actually hits. And that's when things really started to go south for her career, her career kind of, and our relationship, and her financial situation. And it sounds bad because it sounds like things, started going south because she lost her job, and that's why I broke up with her. No, there were rumors about that, but financial problems, they make other problems. So the pandemic hits, everybody's getting laid off, and she's already on this improvement plan thing, and I'm thinking, oh, I don't see this going well. So I start telling her, let's get some applications out. Let's try to get another job because they're laying people off. This has been going downhill all year, and I'm afraid you're just going to get canned. It's better to leave a job, find a new job, than to get fired. She doesn't want to do that. Her mom worked in the same industry, and so she would always consult mom. And mom said it's fine, and everybody's going through the same thing. And another month goes by, she gets fired. I tried not to say I told you so, but I knew it was probably going to happen. So then she's on unemployment, and I'm thinking, see, this is why I wanted you to be looking for another job, and it's starting to affect the relationship. This was in 2020, so we were in a bear market when me and her met in crypto, and so she had heard about it. I went through the bull run of 2017 in Ethereum and Bitcoin and Cardano, Stellar Lumens. So my life, it wasn't gangbusters yet, but I was in a little better position than most people who were a couple years out of college. And I had shared some of this with her, but my day job as a teacher was fine in the pandemic, even though it wasn't very enjoyable. But it was pretty stable. But anyway, so she's unemployed. I'm nervous, thinking it's going to be tough anyway to get a job now she's been fired. She's on unemployment. Actually, at the time, she was making more than working. But I knew that wasn't going to last forever. So I start saying, what's the next move? What are you going to do? Let's have a plan, because I always like to have a plan in place. I'm not somebody who sleeps well at night if I don't know what the plan is, at least. So she's kind of not putting a lot of effort into finding another job. I just don't see a lot of applying. I don't hear about it. So we have some serious talks, and I said, what's going on here? Well, basically she wanted to get married. It came up early on, and she said, we're paying like so much in rent, we could save so much money. I said, yeah, but I don't want to get married for that reason. I'm not really ready yet, and that's just not something I'm gonna be doing right now. But let's focus on getting you another job, and then everything will work out. So that was met with resistance, but there was a lot of talking with mom during this time, and I don't know, I kind of learned in that period of time that she was kind of only going to listen to mom and what mom had to say. So that's when I started learning how relationship dynamics work. So anyway, then I go to some family events, and there's some comments made from mom and grandparents kind of insinuating I should be proposing, and when are you going to marry her, and the grandparents are getting old, and what are you waiting on? And it starts to be kind of some pressure every family event. And I just said I want to do things in our own time, and I don't want to do it because we do it out of fear or whatever, and it's just not how I want to do it. I had to be kind of firm about it a couple of times. So she's still not finding a job. She's telling me, well, the unemployment will keep going because of the pandemic. But we couldn't really find this in writing. We didn't know how long it would after a year. We're coming up on a year. So then I had another plan. It was summer for me. I was a teacher. She's unemployed. I'm off for summer. I told her, I said, I'd like to take you to Disney World. Let's go to Disney World, have a nice trip, and when we get back, then we're going to get really serious about getting you another job. She didn't want to go, which was odd. She said she wasn't in the mood because she was unemployed and all this. I thought it was kind of odd. She liked Disney movies, but she had never seen one until she started dating me. And that winter when 2020 kicked off, we were kind of locked inside with the lockdowns. So I showed her her first Disney movies that she had never watched. And I'll never forget, she absolutely loved The Lion King. She'd never seen it, and she loves cats, so I had her watch it. And I'll just never forget at the end when, Simba comes back and he's taking the pride back and fighting Scar and all that. And I'll never forget, she's like eating popcorn and her cat's sitting next to her. And she says, "Babe, this is a really good movie." And I'm like, "It's Lion King. How have you never seen Lion King?" But it was cute. But so I thought she might like to go to Disney World. She had never been. Her childhood was very underprivileged and very small town, and honestly was hard for me to hear about the things she would tell me about her childhood. Her parents were split up, and there were step-parent situations that were just not good, and it was very hard for me to hear about, really. And one time she was telling me about it, and she got all upset telling the story about having to go for visitation to her dad, and her stepmother sounded like she was just, being awful. And so I had her stop telling the story, and I hugged her and I said, "Well, you're with me now, so we're done with that." And anyway, I thought it would be a good idea, but she didn't want to go to Disney World. So I thought that was kind of odd, and started getting some red flags, like maybe something's not right here. And then we have this big fight one night where I was a little not happy that she didn't want to go to Disney World. I felt a little, what's the word, like, I don't know, unappreciated. And so I remember this one night she was like all upset, and I said, I used the line, I said, "What do you want from me?" And she goes, "I want you to propose." And I said, "Like now?" And I didn't take it seriously because I just didn't. And she says, "I want you to propose." And I had to be pretty firm. I said, "I'm not going to be doing that. We're not set up for that. You're unemployed. We're not getting along right now. You won't even go to Disney when I'm trying to take you on a vacation, but you want to get married?" And I said, "We're not working as a team." And she kept telling me that when I would ask about her situation and if she had applied for any jobs, she started telling me that it was none of my business, but she wanted to get married. So I said, "It is my business because you want to get married." I said, "We have to work as a team if we're going to get married." And she told me one time, she says, "No, I'm not going to do that until we're married. Once we get married, then we'll start working as a team, but not until then." I said, "That's how people get divorced, honey. Marriage is just a piece of paper if you do things that way." I said, "I will not be getting married until we start working as a team and we have some trust." Because I had lost a lot of trust in this whole thing. And so that was a huge milestone where we were really kind of being honest. Then we had another fight. It was more of a discussion. But long story short, she brought crypto into it, and she said, "Well, have you ever thought that maybe you should sell your crypto so that we can buy a house and get married and start our life?" And her mother always used that term with me. She always said, "When are you going to start your life?" Because to her, if you don't own a house, you don't have a life, apparently. I heard that a couple times. So I started realizing how much Mom was influencing this whole thing. And I said, I'm not going to be doing that because it's 2020. I've been through one crypto bull run. I think I know what's coming. And I'm really glad that I didn't. I mean, I had enough money in crypto that I had made from accumulating crypto since 2016. It wasn't an earth-shattering amount, but it was more than enough to acquire a house, but I knew I didn't want to put it into a house. I wanted it in crypto for the next bull run. And if I would have done that, that would have been a huge, huge mistake. That's another video. I'm going to do another video where I talk about why the digital asset guy has never owned real estate, even though he's had a real estate license 12 years. And that's a different topic. But I'm really glad that I never did that, because then I wouldn't have had my crypto for the 2021 bull run and then the 2025 bull run. And I would have just gotten a totally illiquid asset that I probably would be living in now. I'd probably be married, probably have kids, and I want to do those things, but I want to do them in the right way. So yeah, I could confidently say if it wasn't for this pesky crypto, I probably would be married to her with kids, with a little house. I'd probably be pretty trapped. And I don't know, maybe there would be some good things, but I don't think I'd trade places with myself now. And I know it seems a little harsh. It's a really hard topic to talk about with some people, but really glad that I stood firm and I didn't allow myself to get talked into doing something I didn't really want to do. And I had a tough time with it. I almost did. You know, all my friends were getting married. People are telling me you guys are great together, and you know, it's time you need to get married. You know, people were telling me I need to get married and I need to buy a house. And I knew deep down I didn't want to do those things, but I almost let people talk me into them. So that's basically the story. You know, I had to eventually, after we had those tough conversations and I realized that she was never really going to budge and it was all about what her and Mom were planning, I realized that it wasn't a relationship for me, even though all of the day-to-day little things were great. Daily life was great. You know, we were attracted to each other. We were, you know, we lived close and everything, you know, it was like an attachment where I told myself a couple times, like, oh, I just can't do it. You know, it's just not, I just won't be able to handle it. And it was tough. It was one of those breakups where for like 6 months, every day I'd wake up and I'd think, wow, it wasn't a bad dream. You know, I can't believe we actually broke up. It was just crazy. And she's just the sweetest, nicest person in day-to-day life, even if she's having a bad day. So it was really tough. And the actual time I had to break up with her in person, it was just tears, and she's just sobbing like a little girl because that's how she is, and it was very painful. And I'll never forget after I officially had to tell her this was over, You know, I remember thinking for a couple days after seeing her sobbing and crying like a little girl, just thinking, you know, maybe I am just a jerk, you know. Oh, what am I doing, you know? And it wasn't fun for a while, but then I had to be really honest with myself, and months later I was glad with the decision I made, because that would have just been not a good decision to go with my heart rather than my brain. And you know, I've learned I'll take trust over love most of the time. You know, there's a lot of people who I love, or I have loved, that I know I don't trust. And then there's a lot of people who I trust even though I don't love them. But you know, I've learned trust can be more, I don't know, trust can be a more valuable asset than love a lot of the time. Love can really trip you up because it takes your head out of the equation and you're dealing with your heart, but that can get people into a lot of trouble. So it's very difficult, but sometimes you have to separate the two. So, you think I made the right decision? Go ahead and put it in the comments below, and I would love to hear your thoughts. So, thank you for coming on this walk with me on this beautiful day and hearing my story. So, but I'd be interested in hearing your comments. And as you know, my content a lot of times focuses on crypto dating and how crypto life and being a cryptocurrency investor, enthusiast, influencer, how that can affect the dating life because it really can affect it in a negative way. Bree Teresi, my good friend, she is a swimsuit model and she told me that she's having a tough time, that crypto has negatively affected her dating life. You can watch it in my interview playlist. So, really interesting times for crypto people. Dating's hard enough in general, but when you add crypto, it's like all the financial problems that are the number one reason for divorce. It's like those on steroids. So, it fascinates me. So please hit the like button, make sure that you're subscribed, and please share this video with anyone who you think might need to hear it. Because I don't think I'm the only one dealing with this issue. And so hopefully someone else might be able to listen and compare their situation, and maybe it'll help them. Thank you so much. Digital Asset Guy out.